Well, in all the years of having old cars, I have never seen this before. The brake pad has actually delaminated, just pulled itself apart. This isn't actually particularly old, it hasn't done that many miles, maybe 8,000 at the max. I've just got a feeling this is yet another eBay rip-off. Let's see if we can get it out. Somebody else has done a really good step-by-step YouTube video on how to change the brakes, so I'm not going to reprise that. It's just that you know there is a bolt here that you have to undo, and then there's a bolt on the top here that you have to loosen off, but you don't have to take it right out. So that's what I'm going to do next. This assembly has a bolt that undoes there, and it also has a flange here, a little metal flange which you can see I can just move. Now on the top, that hasn't gone round, but on the bottom where it's here, that's trying to turn, and it means it won't undo because the whole thing's turning. So what you do is you put a spanner on there, or in my case I'm just going to jam a screwdriver in there so I can undo the bottom bolt. So I've taken the bottom bolt out and I've left the top bolt in, and then you'll see that the carriage, which is this part moves, so you can lift it up like that. I'm just looking down onto the piston, which is this circle here. You can see that. That's the backing that's come off of the brakes. That can't be right. And brakes just pop out with a screwdriver, put them in there. There we go. That came out rather easily. The other side has come out rather easily. So these are the ones I've taken out, and you can see that the surfaces of those are really mullered. I've never seen that before. Now this is a Bosch part, the actual original part, so we can see the difference between them. Now the wear actually isn't that heavy. In fact, you look at that and you think that's not worn out at all. But I get a lot of dust off this, and these things squeal and they scrape and they're really rather annoying. So I'm changing them over. Before you change the brake pads, be sure to suck a little bit of oil out of the reservoir here, because if you don't, when you move the pistons, you'll end up with a rather oily car. And this is where the oil will come down to, so it looks like your engine is dripping away when it's not. In order to put the new pads in, which are thicker than the old pads, you have to push the piston back in, and I'm just using a G-clamp, and if you just slowly turn that, it will move back in. If it moves easily, your brakes are in good condition. If it doesn't want to move, your brakes are seizing. You can see that's actually going in really quite easily. I'm just cleaning the whole thing up with a brass wire brush. It's always a good idea to get all the old powder out of it and whatever loose is on it, and especially the bearing surfaces. And then I'll slather those with copperies. I've coated all the bearing surfaces with copperies, so in there, down here, and in the back of the caliper there, and that will stop it from screaming when the brakes get hot. Just before I put the new ones back on, I have noticed a significant difference in the design. The Bosch ones have a leading and trailing edge with quite a deep chamfer, whereas the other ones don't have a chamfer at all. That may have contributed them to making the noise that they made and the scraping, and also they overheated and made horrible screaming noises. As a matter of interest, I got them on a deal, front and rear set, for £52 instead of £75. Okay, they're popped back in. As a tip, I found that if you fit the outside one bottom first, it goes in easiest, and the inside one top first, it goes in easiest. Don't really know why. that's it back together. It's pretty easy. You just fold this down, put in the bottom bolt, which is nice and hand tight now, completely coated in copperies, and then do both bolts up. We'll put the wheel back on. Right, I've peeled this paper back on here. We can see that it says Inter something, made in USA. Now I'm inclined to think that this piece of paper is made in the USA and the rest of this is just crap from God knows where. This is the driver's side back wheel, and you can see that that has done exactly the same thing. So that may be the source of the problems, the screaming I get after a long journey. I'll take the bolt out of here, and then down here this part undoes, but it needs a spanner in there, a 13mm spanner, and you have to tap that with a soft hammer, otherwise it won't come off. And once that's out, you should be able to lift the carriage off, which is a two-hand job. This is a problem I've come across before, and this is the way around it. The one at the bottom here, sometimes that just seizes, and no matter what you do, you can't get the spanner to turn it, and it starts to round. So the thing to do is to actually take off the weight. Now the weight is held on the end of it with a little dome-headed bolt like that, which you can take off with a 10mm socket. So you get that in there, take the weight off, and then you can put a long 13mm socket on this, and using a big hammer and lots of swearing, you'll then be able to get it undone. Yeah. If you get a pair of standard pliers like this, you can actually put it into the middle. You can connect it into one of these grooves in there, and then it allows you to turn it. Now you need both your hands to do it. It's hard, but as you turn it and push it down, it goes in. I've managed to wind the piston back in using the pliers, so now it's really quite close to the body of the caliper. Now on these pistons, it's got these cutouts, and the cutout has to be aligned with a pin that is on the back of the pad. So if we look at the pad there, there's a metal pin just there. Now the other ones that came off it didn't have that pin, so that makes me wonder if that was another reason why they weren't working that well. Well, that's that one all back together, and that's what it should look like. Just pump them up so they're nice and solid. The pedal won't push down, there's no give in it. Well, the immediate thing I noticed isn't that horrible scraping noise that it was doing for 100, 200 yards every time I drove away. And that's because it hasn't got those paper labels stuck in the calipers anymore. Just give it a little go up here. Yeah, quite positive. Obviously they need to be deglazed. Oh, that's interesting. Where's he going to go?